In 1995, a sitting governor implemented a policy that life would mean life and that he would no longer consider paroling individuals serving those sentences. In researching the policy, we found that when the legislation was created concerning parole-eligible life sentences, there was an expectation that these individuals would eventually be released on parole. Since the current policy has been in effect, well over 200 people have been recommended for parole. Currently, the governor has the authority to release folk that are serving parole-eligible life sentences. We are advocating to change that authority and place it solely in the hands of the Parole Commission. Since 1995, not one single individual has been paroled as a result of the current policy.
There are only 3 states in the country. I believe Maryland is certainly one of them. I believe the other 2 are California and Oklahoma, where the governor is involved in making decisions with regard to this particular population.
In 1992, my 16-year-old son, who was very mentally disturbed at the time, got into trouble and we ended up in court. Our attorney advised us that if he took the plea of life with the possibility of parole, he'd be eligible for parole in approximately 15 years. And given the nature of his illness, plus the fact that he was a juvenile charged as an adult, they felt quite sure that he would be paroled at that time.
Every sitting governor since 1995 has completely ignored the intent of the plea of life with the possibility of parole. They have usurped the authority of the Parole Commission and turned it into a political football. Every governor feels that if he shows that he's tough on crime by refusing these unfortunate inmates parole, that he will get votes. I think my son would be able to enter society again because he received 6 years of intense mental therapy at Patuxent Institution. And also in the past 19 years, he has been visited by our private psychiatrist and has undergone testing and evaluation by that psychiatrist and found to be little or no danger to society.
My son has really done a lot to make improvements upon himself. He's kind of a prison community activist.
He's never had one incident of drug use violation or violence in the 19 years in prison. Our system and our governors ignore all of that.
My thing is when the state makes a deal, they should honor it. We just want him to have a second chance. He was 16, and it's just wrong. It's wrong.
In February 11th, 2008, I became a victim. My eldest child was murdered. Nothing has been harder than losing my child. A stroke is a minor thing compared to that. When one of the perpetrators showed me so much compassion and remorse, I could do nothing but forgive him. One thing we know, you cannot see Jesus with bitterness and hatred. But since this happened, I've been a constant speaker at the prison with Life for Women and Men, so I've come to know a lot of them, and I changed my perspective.
I have been concerned that we've never been able to really draw a sharp line between redemption and punishment. And the more we emphasize punishment, the greater the obstacles are for individuals to work their way out of the system.
In 1974, at the age of 15, I was sentenced to life with parole. And I've had 31 years of prison experience. I always believed that I would, in fact, get out. And so I received my GED. I received my AA degree. I worked on my bachelor's degree. In 1993, I was in a work release program. Well, work release is very useful because it allows you to go out every day and participate in a job, interact with people in society. I was one of the inmates in whom they transferred back after the incident that occurred. It devastated me. During the process of my incarceration, I made a vow that when I got out, that I would change my life around altogether. But my sentence was commuted in 2004. I worked for 3 years as a case manager, helping women to transition back into society. I've worked as an educator to help women and men to understand the importance of obtaining their GED, so I was a school administrator. The governor needs to be removed from the process because he holds back people like me.
Many of these young people who are currently incarcerated plea bargained, thinking that parolable life sentences meant they could be paroled.
My son Brian was sentenced in 1990 with a life sentence with parole. The attorney that we'd had at that time had said that it's better to receive a life sentence than years, because with a life sentence you can be paroled between 15 and 20 years. So we took the plea bargain. A few years after my son was sentenced, there was a policy that had been initiated that anyone serving a life sentence, even with the possibility of parole, was not getting paroled. When that policy went into effect, it meant that the governor was the only person that can parole anyone in the state of Maryland with a life sentence. No one that I know of has been paroled since this policy took effect. If we had not taken the advice of the attorney, my son would have received a number of years. Therefore, he would have been out of prison by now. I believe the parole decision should be left in the Parole Commission's hands.
The governor appoints very knowledgeable individuals who serve in the capacity of determining whether a person has met their obligation to society.
Not necessarily saying parole is going to be granted, but at least consideration of parole is what the law provides.
We have a parole commission where you have the various psychological screenings or what have you. The parole commission is on top of who is ready for re-entry into civilian life.
My son, Charles Hersey, has been in prison for about 15 years. He was sentenced to life with parole.
We believe that he would have an opportunity to be free again, to actually get back out in society and live a normal life. When Charles was sentenced to life with parole, and we actually began to seek assistance, we found out that there was a policy written by the governor that life meant life.
It's unfair to those who enter prison under a certain sentence with the belief that at some point they could be considered for parole based on what they do or do not do in prison, when in fact that is not occurring.
Charles has received his bachelor's degree since being in prison. He has created a youth program for troubled teens. He would be a positive impact due to his experience in prison to assist other troubled youth and help them turn their life around.
Our former inmates can speak to those young people and help turn around our community.
I was 16 years old and was sentenced to life in prison, whereas I spent 42 years incarcerated. And at the time I was incarcerated, you were eligible for parole within 15 years. And I think now it's wrong that the governor came in and changed the policy. I think the power of parole should be in the hands of the Parole Commission as far as the lifers, you know, because they know us best.
The Parole Commission, I think, is more on top of the issues. Thus, the inmate has to show that he has made every effort and the institution has given him the opportunity to make every effort for redemption.
When I went into prison, I was 16 years old. I was young, stupid, illiterate, immature. As I got probably 5 years into prison, I realized that I was never going to get out doing the things that I was doing. And I needed to find a better way. So I started going to school, and I started taking different classes, different trades. Work release and family leave programs was very important. And it was good because it allowed you to get out there and spend time with your family, you know, and be able to move around, you know, and do things, you know, and save up money. You know, so when you do get released, you wouldn't have to worry about falling back, but you would have a nest egg to come home to. I benefit the community by working every day, paying my taxes. I'm not letting anybody bring me down, send me back to prison, because I'm not going back. You know, my focus is to stay home and take care of my grandchildren.
What we've found is that people who were released on parole-eligible life sentences have a very low recidivism rate. And the other deciding factor is that they grow old and it costs the state more and more money to keep them in prison.
We've discovered that keeping individuals for extended periods incarcerated, once they've met all of the criteria to be released, has driven up the cost exponentially. So I think it's very, very important that my colleagues understand how important this issue is and how they need to rethink their position and do the right thing, not only for society, but for those individuals who've met all of the qualifications for release. They should be let go.
I would like to make a plea to the legislature and the governor, people that are parole eligible, giving them a second chance. And I'm advocating that the parole board have more say in that.
I ask the legislature to please take this matter in hand and do what is right.
The governor needs to be removed from the process because he holds back people like me.
When the state makes a deal, they should honor it.
And I fight for my son because he deserves a second chance.